Hi, everybody. Nephew SIG Automation Meeting for April 26th. All right, let's get started. Let me share the agenda. All right. Okay, so looks like we have a couple items on the agenda. Simon, you've got a couple items here, and then I added an item to discuss the risks. That's really the, oh, I see that. I think this got messed up.
Yeah, yeah, I added that. I think probably we.
Yeah, the bullet's not. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So actually, you already covered this.
Yeah. Yeah, probably we can talk about it together, John. When we.
Yeah. I just didn't. I didn't see that because it was nested under the other thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Simon, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so last week we had the discussion, how do we handle squashing the commits, should we squash the commits, and these topics. And yeah, there I think Bala and I decided it would be best maybe to give an overview of what is possible, because I think what is possible solves already our all of our issues. And I've just written it down here in the document. So if you could scroll to the top, the first topic was like, can we not have it include all the commit messages in the description of the squashed commit? And the short answer is yes, we can. So I've just listed all the options here for completeness, but you definitely have the option to just have the pull request title as the final commit message. Or you could also have the title and the description of the pull request. One thing I wanted to mention, though, I think one thing that's always interesting is how are the others doing it? And so far, I have not actually found a project that changes this. Like a lot of people seem to like the idea of persisting all the commits, at least like the names of the commits in the description of the squashed commit. Now, that was a really complicated sentence, I know, but what I'm meaning is they're not taking the whole commit history from the branch and put it to the main, but they squash all of those, but they take the commit chars of all of these and put them in the description of the squashed commit. This is currently what we have. And so far, I have not seen many projects do it differently, to be honest. And I'm not sure if Tal is in there, because I remember it was Tal's point to ask if we could change it.
I'm here, yeah.
Maybe if there was like something, it's like I understand that it can look a bit weird, but I found it okay-ish. So I'm not sure but if you have a strong opinion, I think it would be now a good time.
I think it could possibly be a combination of both. Yeah, the automation could be fine, but you know, it's a stylistic. Some people work by making a commit every 5 minutes, and then you end up with a commit message, which is just 70 messages long with all the hash codes of everything. I think those are hard to read and not very helpful. So I think we could do both. We should definitely use the automatic squashing, but I think we can also just agree as a community to limit the number of commits. We can do our own squashing, right, before we actually submit the final PR. It doesn't have to be all squashed into one, right? It could be squashing some major commits into something else, right? So maybe that can be a solution. It's not the end of the world. It's just I find the commit history very hard to read sometimes when there are so many squashes.
Yeah, I hope the PRs are not that huge to have so many. So the requirement that you said, group them into multiple commits. I hope.
I won't call anybody out, but we had one.
And we had one, but that's okay. But we can learn and can do something better. Yeah.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand on Zoom. So I think there's a few different issues that come up here, right? So from a reviewer standpoint, commits that are well organized are super useful. Commits that are, I tend to commit fairly frequently, but I also try to commit, meaningfully. But the message after the fact, I don't know is all that useful. The thing that's useful about commits to me is like if I've got a huge PR, because so there's a philosophy thing here, and we have to decide what our philosophy is. And I'm not super opinionated either way, but one philosophy is that main should always be buildable and fully consistent. And so, for example, you should never commit to main. And this is what Kubernetes does. You should never commit an API without an implementation, right? So that means your PRs get bigger because you don't want an API out there that doesn't have any implementation because it's sort of useless to people and it gives a false promise, which means your PR that includes your API also has to include an initial implementation at least. So it can be pretty substantial. In that case, breaking it into multiple commits. This commit is the API. This commit is the automated conversion, generated conversion code. This commit is, initial implementation. This commit is more implementation. Can be useful for a reviewer because I would actually review commit by commit that way. What's less useful for a reviewer are the commits that are just sort of like, as you're figuring stuff out. That's useful for like when I'm a developer, I like to do that because it makes my life easier and I can like run CI against things and everything, right? So, I think we just have to pick what we want. And like Tal said, if we want to make it really clean in the end or clean for reviewers, people can reorganize their commits afterwards, although that's somewhat of a burden on the developer. So like that's kind of like when I put my reviewer hat on or my developer hat on, I get different answers to the question of what I like. Those are my thoughts anyway. Victor?
Yeah, John, to addition what you are saying is the other thing that we have to consider is like for the release notes. So I know that many tools uses the information of the commit messages to generate the config change file. So it's something that we also have to put in our consideration.
Which file?
The change log or like
change
whatever log. That we whatever.
That's a great. No, that's a great point. So what they do in Kubernetes, and I don't know if we want to go to this level of automation at this stage, but there is like for each PR, there's a release note. And it's not quite the same as the change log, right? The change log could be more detailed, but for release notes, there's like a stanza you add into the PR description to say that, you're going to get a release note for this particular PR. But, that's a good point that if we, I think squashing, makes the change log a lot shorter. And I think that we should squash. I don't have I definitely want squashing. And in fact, looking at that list of choices, I would probably choose pull request title and description, but because I don't find the commit log messages that useful once the commits are squashed. But that's just, but that means people need to make a nice PR title and nice PR description.
Yeah.
Bala?
Yeah, John. So yes, I think I echo what you said. I was thinking the same thing. Actually, in one of the things we said, probably all the PR should have meaningful titles and meaningful descriptions, and then we could use. And to Tal's point, I think from what I believe is, I think the developers could, whenever they issue the PR, if they feel like squashing into multiple logical commits, that's okay. But as a policy, we should automate this process through this means. It doesn't matter how many commits come in. It's up to the developer hygiene. We have all different styles, that's fine. but as a policy, we should use this automated mechanism to, we should agree on one mechanism, like whatever. I tend to agree with PR title and description as a meaningful commit message, and then use it to squash.
That would be my vote as well.
Are there, maybe we'll put it the other way. Are there any strong opinions against squashing? Anyone who says, oh, I could not work with that, I could not live with that? I don't see any hands. Okay. Then I fit. Oh, there. Now I jinxed it. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just came a little bit late. So we are talking about squashing the commit at merge time, or are we talking about always keeping the PR, always squashing the commits being squashed at any given time?
At merge time.
At merge time.
merge
Oh,
time.
okay, yeah. At merge time, I think it makes sense definitely to squash it. I think that's what most projects do that too. Because if you wait to revert a PR, you want to go pick that one single commit to revert rather than those 108 commits.
Yes.
I think I remember actually going through this in OpenStack, and where we finally had to go to at squash time. At merge time, it's always one single commit that gets merged. That way it can be removed. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Plus, I mean, Plus, I mean, the good news is you don't lose the commits, right? Because they still live on that branch, and the commit on master or on main has a one-to-one mapping to a pull request, and that pull request then contains all the commits. So even if you were to later want to see the commits that a person went through in their mind before the squash, they could still look it up.
Yeah, well, except if people delete their branches, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a branch on their fork, it's not a branch on the nephew. But that's okay.
Okay. Then I think we can agree on squashing. Then I think next step, if I understand it correctly, Bala, is you're going to write it into the ticket that we already have for this task, and then I assume someone from release will work on it. I saw that someone is already assigned.
Yeah, I actually put a link in the chat. So yes, I think I added all your notes into that one, except these diagrams that you have, but other points, and I also linked it to this particular section in the doc. Simon, thanks for writing this up. So I think right now it's assigned to Redo, and I don't see him in the call. Probably we'll work with him when he's available.
Okay, understood. But that is the understanding that Rado will take care of the things that we're going to decide, at least for our purpose.
Yeah,
okay.
Probably we may have to work with him, but probably yes, that's he's a point of contact.
Yeah. Then two other things that were asked is what is possible in PROW, and there the simple answer is PROW is not particularly powerful in that regard. Essentially, what PROW does, it calls the GitHub API with a strategy that you can configure. So if we were to have PROW then as the only thing that can merge, right? The PROW bot would later on become the only thing that can merge. You can set it to squash, and then it will always send the squash request to GitHub, similar as to when you click the button that says squash merge. That's exactly the same, essentially.
Sounds good. Since you asked, Simon, are there any objections to squashing? And we got none. Are there any objections to choosing the default to pull request title and description, which is
yeah, true, good point.
So far, Bala and I voted for that. I didn't hear any voices from anybody else.
I'm also for that. I have no strong opinion on this.
Okay.
I think that's great. I vote for it too. I would say that it does. With this understanding, it means that all reviewers should pay attention to the PR description.
Yes, exactly.
And that also means that the PR description might need to be updated if the understanding as the PR evolves during review.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Do we have a template for the PRs, or we haven't defined something yet?
I don't think we do right now. So it might be good to at least add a template there that says, hey, this will be used as the commit message. You should write it as such.
Yeah, what does Kubernetes do, John? Do they use a template?
Oh yeah, they have a template that's fairly because they have, like I said, like the release note tag, and they've got a bunch of stuff in there. We could go look at what they have, but I don't think we need everything they have.
Okay.
But it's
Probably
worth taking a look at it. Yeah.
Cool. Probably we can do something. But for now, let's use the free flowing with meaningful text for now.
Yeah.
And then
Awesome.
probably, yeah, we can investigate that. Thanks, Victor. Yeah.
Yeah, then the last question was, how do we handle a PR which has commits from
you're
multiple
breaking
authors?
up.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I can hear you fine too. I don't know why.
Maybe it was on your side, Tal.
Ah.
I think Tal said you're
Could be.
breaking up, but you weren't for me.
Always on a different conversation as well.
Okay, good. Then we will continue with the last thing. So how do we handle a PR which has commits from multiple authors was one of the questions. And there the idea was, hey, if someone has worked on it, it shouldn't get lost just because the PR was opened by someone else and it gets squashed. And here the good news is that essentially GitHub does this automatically for you. The way it does it is basically when it does a squash merge is it looks through all the commits that it has. And if it finds multiple authors, what it's going to do is it's going to add a line in the commit message of the squashed commit that says like co-authored by, or it adds like one line per co-author. And then I've put in a screenshot for you. You can see in the UI, then there's like two profile pictures and there's two people, and it also is persisted, of course, in the squashed commit because it says co-authored by, so it is preserved in history as well.
Sounds good.
So here nothing is to vote. I hope at least. Because then there's one last topic from my side. It was just something I noticed while we were going through some of the sports. I would be in favor, or I would like to make the suggestion that we add like another column that says like in review, where we put things that, hey, we think all the code work is done. It's ready if it gets approved. Just to distinguish that a bit would be my. So
that makes sense to me. The one thing I'm wondering is, have we been including, I thought we were at this point, like in the beginning, we were including PRs and issues in the boards, but this sprint anyway, what I've looked at, I'm seeing just issues, in which case this wouldn't be relevant. Or maybe, so do we want to include PRs? Because that's a manual step to be done.
So to answer your question, John, I think there's an issue if the PR is in a different organization. So for example, when I made the PR to KPT, it cannot be included, I think, in the Nefio board because it's not inside Nefio.
That's why I created those issues that basically just point over, right? Like, even though there's, yes, same as for issues, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's one thing, but we can track those with issues, and I guess we could move the issue into in review. Like, there's no reason.
Exactly. Yeah. That was my idea. Yeah. Maybe
in our board, I have both PRs and issues in it. In our board, I think.
If you put the right labels, then the PRs will show up in the in that board. I think that's what Wim has done. I like that one. So on this particular topic of in review, I think we discussed about it. I think Venkat had a point last time when we spoke, and then I think most of us were in agreement. Basically, at this point of time, I don't know whether having one more column is helpful or not overall. That was the sentiment when we discussed last time. We can change it. I just wanted to bring that to the table.
Sorry, I was at one of the topics before Wim said, but Wim, so is it possible that if you set a tag on a PR, it shows up in the Nefio board, even though it's not from the Nefio?
No.
Okay.
No, what I was just saying is, I think, we are both tracking the PRs as well as the issues in the board. I think we are probably the only subgroup who does, but it's like you said, you cannot link the other repo to that. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah,
I think the best thing for now is to, yeah, we can create one more column. Sorry, I know Venkat, your hands raised. I'll just yield to you in a minute. We can, yeah, I think things in progress is okay, and with a comment to that issue, that's one way we could do that. Or if you want an explicit column, I'm not sure whether we need that at this stage, but I'm okay. I can dissuade. Yeah, Venkat, please.
So the column, the purpose of the column is to let's understand the purpose of this ask. Maybe someone. So and then we can see adding a column is not a big deal, but let's try to understand the purpose and what it is going to solve.
Yeah.
So today, you're saying without this column, do we have any challenge in identifying the tickets which are on in review, or the reviewers been notified without this, or not notified? Was there any those sort of a challenges? If that's the challenge, adding a column definitely makes sense. No, right?
So
Okay.
no, so the challenge is, or I would say at least the challenge is indicating for an issue, hey, all the code work has been done, when the code work is not being done in the Nephew project.
Okay. Okay.
But I add this here.
Okay, that's one point. Second point, maybe Bala, if you can help me answer. The status change in the board. So the ticket, we need to add a status column or a status value as a review into issue so that it automatically goes and sits in the column, or is it a manual drag and drop? I'm sorry, I didn't explore the board, but how does it work? Because adding an in review, what if it is not taking the status and putting the column? If it's a manual move, then it's a pain.
Yeah, I think I think it could be automatic, Venkat.
Okay,
if I
if
understand
it's
it.
automatic.
But basically, we need to add one more value to the status.
Yeah, we need to add a status.
And
value.
then when the status changes, then it will move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If
So-
that's the case, then
Sorry, finish. If you, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought I was done. Okay.
no, I'm done. Please go ahead. John.
Okay. So this brings up another thing. So there is a workflow within GitHub that might be useful where you can mark a PR as a draft. And when it's a draft, it's saying, here, I'm working on this. I'm putting it out here. The CI runs against it. People can look at it. People can do reviews, but I'm not saying it's ready to merge. So it's not like ready for final review. And to me, that's a sort of equivalent to the in progress column. And then there's a column of this is ready for final reviews. I think this is done. And then you move it out of draft state. I kind of wonder if GitHub, because they do automatically move things to done when you close an issue, it automatically gets marked as done and moves there. I'm wondering if GitHub has an automation that takes drafts and moves them from in progress to some sort of like ready for final review. Like in review, Simon, are you thinking ready for final review, or because in progress, like the PR you did, you wrote something and then I reviewed it, and then you're going to go back and other people reviewed it, and it's sort of still iterating. That would be in review, or that would be in progress? And
that's actually a very good point. Generally,
like even after you move out of draft, sorry, just to finish the thought from before, you could still go through that process, but it's sort of like a distinction of like, these are final reviews versus like, this is like, oh, give me an initial review, early review, here's my first cut, right? There's a sort of distinction.
yeah, okay, true. Yeah, then you're right. Maybe then it should be ready for final review, because that is the intention.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had my thought, but before that, yeah, please, Victor. Sorry.
I don't know. As regarding that particular automation, in my experience, what I have seen is like, it works as long as you specify the relationship with the commit with the issue. So when you have that reference in your commit message or somewhere, that works fine. But we have to enforce the developers to correlate, like to include the issue as part of the commit message or somewhere. Like
you have to say in the PR description, fixes number 115 or whatever. Yeah. And then the automation works.
Well, thanks. Victor. I was thinking, so at this point of time, we have 2 or 3 issues that falls into the bucket where Simon is saying everything is related to KPT push. I think 3 issues, John, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So if I may suggest, so can we revisit this after R1? Do you think that's a feasible thing? Because whether how we need to arrange our boards.
I mean, I'm open to whatever. I think there is even if it's not an upstream issue, there is still a distinction between like, I'm working on it, but it's not ready for review. And this gets back to Venkat's question. Like, are we thinking this is how reviewers will go to the board and they'll look through and see, is there something ready for review? Like I have had a little bit of an issue, like there's a whole bunch of open PRs. I don't know which ones are.
Yeah, I have been advocating like what you said, John. If it is not for consumption, if it's just for sharing, please make it a draft PR.
Okay.
I think I like that suggestion. If according to me, I mean, we should do what you said. If the PR is not ready for general consumption, I mean, maybe multiple people are working on it, or they may be just soliciting advice, so whatever. There could be a number of reasons. If it is not for that, then we should make it a draft PR.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, that works for me. What,
Yeah.
any other thoughts from other people? Okay, so where do we document this? Probably we need to start a little developers guidelines or something document.
it is actually already documented in our process thing. The exact thing that we discussed is kind of documented in our process guideline.
Oops. Is that on GitHub or is that in the?
It's in a Word doc. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Can we? Yeah. Let's start a either in the governance repo or in the Nefio repo or in the docs we were saying was for user-facing docs.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we had in Kubernetes, we have I think a community repo that has a developer's guide in it. The governance repo is kind of the equivalent in Nefio. I don't think we have another one that's like that, but wherever we put it, somewhere, if somebody can pick somewhere appropriate and go ahead and move that to there, and we'll start that onboarding section. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're on mute.
Hi. I haven't been attending these meetings for a while because I shift my work schedule to the evenings and sleeping through in the morning. So apology for this question, but I'm a little bit surprised that we're discussing these issues at this point at 6.2 instead of the code or the progress. So what's going on?
So we have the other meetings
24
where
people listening to this.
Okay, so it's
Sorry.
not interesting. So we have the other meetings for execution, right? So the code and the issues we go through in each sub-project. And this is for things that are common across those sub-projects where we need to coordinate. So the next big agenda item is, I think, more aligned with what you're saying. It's the R1 status. So I just, maybe we spent too long on this, we can move on. But yeah, that's really about the, this meeting is now about cross sub-project things. Detailed execution level things are in the sub-project meetings.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, sure. But to that point, maybe we have spent too long on this. So Bala, you want to jump into your, I think we're set on what we want to do here.
So, yeah, I just want to, before that, Simon, is that okay if we consider that post R1? Since you brought it up, I just want to make sure that.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's a good feedback. We will consider that, and probably we can make it. I think we may need that kind of a workflow anyway beyond R1. So thanks for that. Yeah. So meanwhile, I will investigate the status stuff and how it can be automated, Simon, on the GitHub side. Cool. Thank you. So on this one, can I present?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Sure.
Let me-
Let me see. Last time I had some issues with slides.
Are you able to present? I think you should be.
Yeah, I think I'm able to present. Only thing is, okay, let's see. I don't know which one it's showing. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing major items.
Okay, okay. Let's see. Okay. So I think we both are seeing the same thing at this point of time. I was seeing something else. So John, what I wanted to do was we could have gone through the board, but instead of that, I just had this one pager here, and then the major items that we have, and then see where we are. We have 2 more sprints, right? So whether is there any risk items, anything in red? Yeah, I wanted to take it that way.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so everyone okay with that instead of going through the board where the issues are more granular. So then I separated this into the subgroups. So, and again, everyone please pitch in here. This is just my understanding at this point of time. And it may be slightly dated also. Dated in the sense may not reflect what happened like yesterday afternoon, something like that. So in package management, we have purge config injection. We have 2 or 3 issues there. Both John and Simon are working on that. According to me, it's in line, and it's probably ready for this, or maybe early next sprint. Is that right understanding, John?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Okay, cool. Thank you. The other one is the packages for other 5GC functions, the USCAP packages from Ranch. We spoke to them yesterday, and then I think they're waiting on the CLA to be ratified by their legal at this point of time in order to contribute. But we believe in terms of packages themselves, they're already there. We could use as they are, but that there may be some changes because of the way it's going to be deployed in Nephew, because we may be deploying in at least 2 clusters, if not more. Whereas the demo that Orange did, it was on single cluster, so it may need some changes. So according to me, that's the only gating factor at this point of time. They're getting the approval from the CLA. So this may, I think we are expecting probably this work will start either this sprint, and since the work is already done, I think this particular item may not be in there. That's my understanding. If anyone has anything else, please let me know. Okay, and the third major component is the UI. We have few folks working on that one. Sahir, Chandra, and Ganesh. They are trying to understand that they're doing the infrastructure setup, and then also the design and the requirements gathering. My understanding that will be worked upon this sprint and next sprint. Again, UI itself may not be needed for the end-to-end integration testing. So we have a little bit more time on that to include them in the package. So I have a feeling we are on track for this and next.
I think we're okay. I think there's some risk because there's a lot of getting up to speed for the folks but I think there's some risk, but I think it's recoverable. I think we'll be okay. So I agree that it's not a high risk item right now.
Okay, thanks. The other one is installer. I know Victor, you Wish, Ravi, multiple people are working on that. There are multiple. We have discussed how we want to create packages, how we want to layer it, how we want to use it in the installer. So can we get where we are on that one particular stuff?
Yeah, also like part of the source code is in my personal account, so I'm just working internally to release it. So at least it is something that we can use it as a start point for the installer.
Okay, in order to contribute, do you see any, do you need to get any kind of a legal okay from your?
No. I don't think so. I mean, most of my code is using regular standards. It's just more like following the internal process, which I have never been used before. But probably in the meantime, I will need extra eyes on that just to see capture things. I think John made great feedback about the headers, the license headers. So probably need to modify them. But other than that, probably I will need extra eyes on the early stage of the project.
Okay, so do you think it somewhere in the middle of this sprint or somewhere towards the end, do you think that code could be pushed to the Nephia repo?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone else has any particular thoughts or any questions on this one? Okay, cool. So the next one is controller manager. This is where we want to have a single binary for all the controllers in the management cluster. I think the design is done, and Sandeep indicated that he also started progress with at least one of the controllers, and then he is trying to write a framework. According to me, this is well under control. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So then next one is the NF topology controller. I wasn't very sure of where we are at this point of time. I know Stephen has written a design document for this one, where exactly how exactly this needs to be. I know there may be some available code as well. So I wasn't sure where exactly is this, whether we are on red or we are making good progress. So that's why I put it in red. It may not be in red. So that's something that we need to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it's so sorry I haven't been to this package management meetings. So there's a PR on the design doc, as you said. John makes some comments, and then they're useful comments. I'll incorporate that. But in the meantime, I'm obviously start coding while the design is iterating. So the idea is to hopefully have something for this particular sprint, for this sprint, this current sprint.
Okay. So, John, did I miss any major item in the package management? Or did I?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. So, is it okay to move to the
Yes,
next one?
Please do. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
One question, Bala. I'm sorry, I have been having some Bluetooth issue with my Mac. So on that, I don't know, Vish is here. Okay, no, yesterday I was supposed to sync up with Vish, but we could not get. I mean, somehow time didn't sync up. On that thing, what Victor was talking about, is it that again in sync with what Wim was proposing in terms of handling the installation using the kept packages, or is it fundamentally different?
I think there is two different things. I think, Victor, from what we discussed, one is the way to get the whole thing connected, and then it's just to install the management side, right? So I think there is two different things. I think what Victor was talking about is the first one. What I talked about yesterday is the second one.
Okay, so do we have a consensus on which way to go, or are we still debating? Or
No, they are complementary. Ravi, it's not one or
okay.
the other. They are complementary to each other.
Okay. So I need to understand the pipeline. It's not clear in my mind. Okay, I'll sync up with Fish. Probably he has a better understanding.
We can do it. We can have a call if you want. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to make sure that that we're layering it, and like you can independently have a set of clusters, and then you can install the management
Yeah.
stuff as a kept package.
Yeah.
And then you can install you can bootstrap the individual workload clusters as a kept package as well, ideally. Okay, so that those are just, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's what the idea. But I think, yeah, so that's,
By
yeah,
bootstrapping
we'll see
the
whether
install.
the cluster will be probably more of a challenge, I think, right now. But the other one is probably more easy to do.
By bootstrap, I just meant once the cluster's up and running, installing.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay,
That should
and
be
then-
okay.
Eventually, we'll move to where, right, you can have a package that represents a workload cluster. You
Correct.
deploy it to the Nepio management cluster as a package, and then if there's a controller that actuates a repository for it, and there's a controller that actuates a cluster for it, and there's a controller that, it's going to have another package associated with the transport, so that there'll be something eventually that actuates the transport between that cluster and the others. So I think we can get there so that really it's all bootstrapped through. Nepio does everything, right? Like you bootstrap Nepio by getting the management cluster up and running, and that's pretty much all you have to do. And then you use Nepio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even for that you could, use Nepio, but not the same Nepio.
Yes.
It's like cluster API, right? So they are also
Yeah. Bootstrap. Yeah.
So good to know there are two Nefios.
Yes.
There's multiple ones. Yeah.
Okay, we have 15 minutes left, so Bala, we better.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Cool. And package specialization, the function runtime, I think it's ready to merge. That's one of
the maybe call it SDK. Maybe call it the SDK.
Yeah. So I think you want me to remove the runtime or just keep it?
Yeah, just move SDK because I think we changed the name. We agreed to make it SDK.
Okay, got it. Okay. Cool. That is one. And then the libraries are also in progress. The functions, there are different functions, they are also in progress. I know Wim mentioned the other day that he had certain functions developed, which is using the function SDK, which works. He has already tested that. I mean, he in the sense, the team, the package specialization team.
Yeah, the team.
Yeah. So we are good on those things. So obviously once the couple of these things gets merged, top two items, we'll pay the way for the merging of the functions themselves, which is a big thing.
We have a bit of a dependency tree there, right, at Bala. So, but yeah, we have all the code, but it's in private. So it's not fully merged because we have the dependency on the PRs, right?
Right. Yeah.
The other good thing that I think Isti did a great job. We actually have a bit of an end-to-end testing for specialization. So we have a sub end-to-end testing for specialization. So that is a framework for KRM function testing, and Isti used it to actually set it up. So he did it already for the DNN function. So we are going to use it. So, but we can test specialization on our own basically. Awesome. With that, awesome. which is very good. I think Isti did a great job there. Yeah.
Also, I assume that would also be upstream, right?
Yeah, yes. So in other words, I think right now he has it in DNN, right? But what you see is actually we are testing more end-to-end than anything else.
Okay.
So they are not really module tests or unit tests anymore. They are actually testing a gazillion of so basically they test the whole flow. So it's nice because you can make sure that specialization works basically, right? So that's the nice thing with that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So and here, Hensley.
Hey Vin, the functions, are they ready to be used? Meaning can I use them in my code?
So ready to be used. So they are not merged yet because we have dependencies, but we have functions. So I have a library myself that is not part of Nepio where they are there and they are used to hydrate the package. So you see the flow. So that we have. Yeah. But you probably need at this stage only the end result, right? You don't need the functions necessarily. You just need the end result, I guess, from them.
Okay. I guess I was confused about get NAD versus,
No, see, what we did is we have all the functions, by the way, but because we are depending on the SDK and the SDK is not merged, you cannot merge the function, right? So that's our problem. So
I think the question is, if the SDK is ready to merge, do we think we can like get those kept functions up and merged in the next couple of days? And if we do, is the build pipeline ready to push those into Docker containers such that they can be consumed in kept packages?
That's a different thing that I don't know yet.
Yeah,
But
let's set that aside. That's a release 3 thing, but I think that's going to be the next question.
Okay. Thanks.
What ST did is we have a way to test those functions and combinations and stuff like that, individually, but also in combination.
But Wim, I wanted to say something like John said before, that if others they want to play with the functions, then we can provide the Docker images. We can just compile it in our own machines, even before the SDK is merged. So basically, we can do at least the version that we have. We can do it right now, and they can play with the Docker images.
Yeah, but they are in a private repo at the moment. So the Docker images right now are on my repo. So they are not yet using the Docker Hub. So it's on. Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's try and get these things merged, because it sounds like they're basically ready. So let's try and get them merged like quickly. Yeah.
And there are some corner cases that are still failing, so we are fixing that. But the happy part seems to be okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Wim. All 8 test cases are passing right now. I was so happy to see. A lot of the corner cases are also passing. So it is. It is.
Okay, I was not up to date. So you have more latest information. So great. Yeah. So the fix that
I checked it, and by now all of my tests are passing, are green.
Okay, sorry.
Very good.
Sorry. Yeah, perfect.
Ship it. Yeah.
And for others to understand, that also means that the SDK is also, that Wim is writing, is also in a good shape. So the SDK does what it's supposed to do. So awesome. We are in a good shape. That's
cool. Thank you, Wim. Thank you, Isti. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's teamwork.
Yeah. Cool. So that's what it is. And the controllers too, then IPAM and VLAN. My understanding is they need to be, I mean, obviously we have one version ready that need to be pushed into the Nephew. There are 2 things. One is the backend for them, and one is the controller themselves. So we separated them into 2 items here. Again, Wim, please chime in here. In my view, I think controllers, we are good, probably will be pushed this sprint. Whereas the backend is, since you said it's a larger code base, we may start with using the images directly for our testing. At the same time, we'll start pushing them into the Nephew repo with multiple PRs, is what I understand.
So here I want to say, I want to be sure that we keep the backend as a distinct entity. So like in the installers, the backend should be treated like it shouldn't be part of Nephew. It's like a separate thing. Like if we've got a sandbox that we're creating that's like a fully packaged version of Nephew, it includes, cluster provisioning, and it includes IPAM, that's fine. But like, it's not technically the backend's not technically part of Nephew, right? And the reason that's important is because it's important that conceptually people understand that Nephew doesn't do IPAM. Nephew integrates with IPAM. And we're not an IPAM solution. We integrate with whatever IPAM you have. Similarly, we don't allocate VLANs. We integrate with whatever you have to allocate VLANs. And this is a reference implementation of an IPAM solution, but it's distinct from Nephew. So I just want to be sure that's clear in the way we package and the way we do the installations.
Yeah, that's the way it is now. One thing why there is a relationship. It is actually how you said, but I also use CRDs to provision the IPAM, and they share a bunch of types.
Okay.
You see, so the way it's built, it's actually like you said, but the so there is a CRD that also provisions the IPAM, and they share the same types as the allocation. So there is a big, in terms of the code is separate, so you will have a dedicated control. So actually, it's already like that. You have a dedicated controller for specialization, right? Which use the gRPC connection. But what you see is that there are a bunch of methods and API types that are shared between the backend, because the backend uses the CRD.
I see. I see.
So,
Okay.
so in other words, I will put the code of the controller there, but you see that there is a huge dependency with the backend in terms of building it.
I see. Okay. Well, let's defer this conversation for another forum, but
yeah,
I think it's clear the point I'm trying to make, and let Bob, I'll continue. We don't have much time left.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of but in terms of risk, I just want to highlight that one. So since it's a huge code base, so probably we can start. Okay, we can let's take, like John said, to a different meeting that particular stuff. That's why I put that in hello. But I'm pretty sure this will be done. The one thing I was not very sure about is the last one, the Edge Watcher server. This is basically, I'm pretty sure I name my nomenclature is not right here. It's basically that the aggregator stuff, status aggregator.
Yeah, so the name is now Edge Status Aggregator, I think.
Okay.
So Arwen's taking a work on this, and then so we are trying as hard as possible, obviously. So this is directly from the seed code, from the Google seed code.
Yeah.
There's some shuffling of things. For example, the original controller, there's a piece which does all the graphs and status tracking. So that would be combined with other pieces to form a controller. But we are trying as hard as possible to make minimum modifications on that piece of code, other than this little reshuffling. So the NF topology controller right now, in fact, spits out the NF deployed, if you will, CL, just to make sure that we don't need to change that on that front end. So we expect minimum changes. Arwen has already created a separate repo and had a first crack of the code. So I guess it was merged by Tao, and then I can point you guys to the repo later on. But then so that repo passes unit tests, but we haven't done any integration tests, obviously, because you need to have NF topology controllers, and obviously the watcher agents start getting status to do integration testing.
So Stephen, that controller then would eventually get integrated into the controller manager, presumably, and be executed as part of that.
It's a management cluster controller. So yeah.
Okay.
And is there also PRs and stuff like that for this?
Yeah, it was merged, but there was a PR. Yeah.
So Stephen, do you see any risk at all
risk
for R1 in this one?
We have to do testing. I think at this point there's not a whole lot of development per se, but we have to do integration test. I mean, to be honest, I would defer that as late as possible, because if we don't have it, it's certainly a candidate to be dropped out of that one, if you will, because a lot of other pieces needs to be in place for this to start showing progress, to start showing that it's actually working on an integration test, and that's probably one of the later things that we'll do probably for the integrations.
Okay,
but it is coming. The code is in place.
Okay.
Unit tests are working. So the last thing would be when the other pieces are ready to integrate, we'll put that as part of the automated integration test, if you will. But then that's still some time from now. So.
Okay.
But it seems that, just to be clear, I mean, it seems that the seed code we use, why are we not following the same PRAO status? Because it seems to follow a different thing. Should we not set it up also that it follows the same process as we do for all the other repos?
Yeah, it should for sure.
Because right now I just saw the PR, but there is no PRAO, there's nothing like that. It seems installed there. I think we should follow everything in the same way, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised that it wasn't, because Arwen has been doing PRAO. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just maybe we make.
Yeah. Let me ping him to make sure that
to set up PRAO and
pre-submit and everything's in place.
So, and just one more question before I move. So, I mean, in my understanding, this is a must, right, for R1, or do you think this is something we can do without? Just one.
Small community decision, I guess.
I mean, I definitely think I'd like to see it in there. I don't know that it's a super must, but I don't know
Okay.
if there were something we had to cut, this would probably be
A potential candidate.
yeah,
Potential.
exactly.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks.
But it sounds like it's actually just a little bit of integration work that needs to be done. Assuming the agent, which is probably, we only have 2 minutes left, so maybe we should get to the workload stuff. Assuming the
Yeah,
agent,
let's go through workload.
Yeah.
that this isn't actually that much work. Now, what's not clear is whether it will work with network functions that are provisioned not using the topology controller, but using only the direct package variant set stuff. But I don't think we have time to discuss that now. So
Okay, let's move on. Okay.
Okay, there are 2 minutes. Let me quickly just summarize work happening. So yes, there's good progress happening on all fronts. We are talking about building our own container images, and there's some discussions on how to do that for the operators. And one issue that Denise and I debugged together and found a workaround for now is, well, where the initial, so I'll mention the initial PRs, we're using our own internal CRDs, but we obviously are moving now to using the shared API repository. But there have been some challenges with that, having to do with seemingly conflicts between the runtime, the controller runtime versions of Kubernetes and what we've actually been using in the API. So there's a hack for now that can work, but we'll investigate and make that more seamless going on. But yeah, very good progress.
Yeah, thanks, Tal. I was thinking the controllers and 5GC operator as well. So the watcher agent, I wasn't.
Yeah, it's that's the same discussion as the H status aggregator. I mean, these two components work together.
Okay.
And let's be honest, it kind of is falling between different sub-projects here. We're not, the responsibility of who works on it is not super clear. So I think we need to figure that out better together. But as we said, we're not even sure.
So very quickly for watcher agents, I don't think we would, it would, and I don't, so I ran it on kind and stuff. I don't think there's any changes needed, but it's like the other one, is fully integration costs. So we have to put that in. That has an added distinction to have to also integrate with the free 5GC operators to make sure that we can pull status out of that correctly. But then it's all integration costs on this one.
Right. I will be in favor of, I know we're putting it in red, but I will be in favor of releasing something with R1, even if it's just a placeholder for later, just to have it listed in the components that we have. Yeah, anyway, that's a separate discussion, but
cool.
Okay, so Tal, you also agree that both status aggregator and the watcher agent, I mean, need not super critical, but definitely we need to have. That's your sentiment, right?
Yes, that's my sentiment. I'll say generally, I mean, R1 is missing lots of pieces. We have various placeholders and temporary hacks. We're not dealing with infrastructure at all. So there will be themes for R2 that will probably redo some of the stuff we've already done for R1. But I keep repeating, I think placeholders are important because R1 will have a lot of visibility. You know, people will look what's included in Nefio, what is the scope of Nefio, this is how they would understand it. So even if the components don't do everything, even if they're just silly placeholders that are just there, that still has value in my mind. So that's the basis of my sentiment.
Cool. Thanks, Tal. Let me quickly move to the release. The test bed is in progress. Wish, Victor, Lado, and Ravi, everybody's start working on that one. And then obviously integration testing. Integration testing is probably everybody will chip in, I believe, and all of us. So obviously that will start once we have a better picture of, once we have enough code in the repo. I think hopefully that should start in the middle of maybe towards the end of this sprint, so that we have one sprint to next sprint is the last sprint, actually last working sprint. We have one more sprint, sprint 5, which is a 1-week sprint, which is mostly like for tidying up things, fixing bugs, integration, etc.
So we're over time here, folks. The one question I had was about the build process, and so maybe we can take that to Slack. And like we just said, if the functions are ready, we need to have them built and pushed to the Docker repo, right? The images. So thank you, Bala. This is awesome.
Yeah. Did I miss any major component? That's one thing I wanted to in any of this. The build process is one thing that you mentioned. Just like that, did I miss something major?
There is well, I guess since we're not doing infra, it's not necessarily there. There's a stretch goal around like the cluster bootstrap controller that Sandeep was going to work on, but that's a stretch goal, so we don't need to talk about it, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Let's just keep on pushing it forward.